Welcome to Part 2 of the PCC Apprenticeship Orientation. In Part 1, we explained the structure of apprenticeship and the timeline of an apprenticeship program. Now let's break down some of the most important steps to make sure you reach that program completion without any problems. The steps to success. We will cover 3 of the most important steps: tracking your progress, communicating with your committee, and finding the resources you need. Step 1. Track your progress. This chart represents advancement through a sample apprenticeship program. Your program may be longer or shorter, but the basic idea is that every month you are logging and reporting hours you work, OJT, and hours you spend in class, RT, and when you get a certain amount, you can move from one period to the next. This is called a re-rate. Each period in your apprenticeship is also associated with a higher percentage of the journey level wage, so a re-rate could also mean a pay raise, but that will depend on your own individual salary and any apprentice wage structures that your individual workplace employs. But know, as an apprentice registered to your JATC, you are always entitled to make at least the wage indicated by your current apprenticeship period. You may make more, but you cannot make less. No matter the length of your program, you can see from this sample chart that a very typical period consists of 1,000 OJT hours and 72 classroom hours. This is made up of a chart that assumes a 40-hour work week and a 30 to 33-hour class term to create this chart. This allows the potential for advancement every 6 months. This does not mean you will absolutely be re-rated every 6 months. Some apprentices will advance more quickly, some more slowly. This depends on your individual situation and how many hours per week are eligible to be logged on your time card or your MPR. And remember, the only way your committee knows if you are progressing is if you tell them by submitting your hours. This is why apprentices are required to submit both OJT and RT hours every single month on their monthly progress report. This is absolutely essential to document your movement through your program, and we'll talk specifically about how to successfully submit your MPRs in Part 3 of this orientation. Let's talk a little bit more in detail about how re-rates happen. It is useful for you to understand that regardless of when you start your program, your committee is required to evaluate every apprentice in the program every 6 months. This means that there are 2 committee meetings scheduled each year as automatic re-rate meetings. They are clearly noted on the calendar, which you can find online. You do not need to take any action for the committee to evaluate your progress at these meetings. It will happen automatically, and you will receive a letter in the mail informing you of the action taken by the committee. Sometimes the action was simply that your file was reviewed with no action, or that your file was reviewed and you were held in your pay period because you did not yet have enough hours to get re-rated. This is normal, especially if you are registered to the JATC less than 6 months ago. If you're curious about when these meetings happen, be sure to check your committee meetings calendar online. If your file is reviewed at an automatic re-rate meeting and you do not have enough hours for a re-rate, you may be eligible at the following meeting. Your committee will always want you to be re-rated if you are eligible. However, and this is important, if you want the JATC to review your file for a re-rate at a non-re-rate meeting, you must request this 10 business days prior to the meeting. Just use the committee action request form that is available online to request your file review. And remember, re-rates aren't just about accrued hours. In order to be eligible for a re-rate, you must have all your minimum hours, but you also must be in good standing with your committee, which means you cannot have any failing grades, any late monthly progress reports, or lapsed certifications, such as your COIN first aid safety. Even one late MPR can hold you from your re-rate, so be sure you are staying on track. Step 2. Communication with your JATC. Like many regulated groups, your JATC has its own language it uses to conduct business and communicate with apprentices. Some of the most used terms are committee actions and reasons. Every time the committee evaluates your file, either because it is an automatic re-rate meeting, because you have a disciplinary issue, or because you have simply requested it, they are required by the state to communicate their action to you in writing. And when they do this, they will share both the action they took and the reason they took it. It's important to understand the difference. Also be aware that apprentices have the right to address the committee members at any meeting and to appeal any decision made by the committee. The appeal process is detailed in both the standard and the policy. A sampling of actions you will commonly see is shown here. Re-rates from one pay period to the next, a hold in a pay period, or an exam referral in a licensed trade. And here is a sampling of reasons. A complete list of actions and reasons is listed in your committee policy document. You can also see that the actions and the reasons are connected, and some reasons may indicate that an apprentice is in trouble, while others may not. So it's a good idea to pay attention. For example, if an apprentice is being held, right here, the action, due to short hours, the reason, that likely indicates that the automatic re-rate meeting was simply scheduled before the apprentice had been registered long enough to have accrued enough hours to earn the re-rate. They will probably have enough at the next re-rate meeting. However, if an apprentice is being held, same action, for late MPRs, a different reason, this is a problem. If you receive a hold notice to appear, that typically indicates a more serious issue, and you will need to appear in person, sometimes with your employer, to discuss the issue with the committee. Do not ignore notices to appear. If you do not appear when requested, you will be in even more trouble for failure to appear. Anytime you are asked to appear before the committee, you will receive that letter via certified mail, which requires your signature so the committee can be assured that you are aware of the notice. If you receive certified mail from the committee, it's your responsibility to make sure you are able to sign for and receive that mail. Notices of proposed cancellation and exam referral notices also come certified mail. So don't be surprised. Just pay attention. And the most important thing is please do not ignore communications from your JATC. And don't be afraid to reach out if you have questions or need help. Communication really is the key to your success. Step 3 is identify where you can find the resources you will need. Nearly all the forms and information you will need as an apprentice are available online at the PCC Apprenticeship and Trades webpage. Bookmark it. If you are on campus, these documents are also all available in hard copies outside the apprentice office at Swan Island. Some things that you will use most often include the committee action request form. Remember, you use this to request a file review for re-rate if you think you are eligible and the next meeting is not an automatically scheduled re-rate. You will also use this form for any other committee request. Apprentices are always able to address the committee, but we must have this form submitted 10 business days in advance of the meeting to assure that your request gets added successfully to the agenda. You will also find the contact info change form. Use this form if any of your contact info changes. We asked you to fill out the form so that we can be sure we change your address everywhere it needs to be updated, with PCC, with your committee, and with the state of Oregon. You will also find online a blank MPR. You may need this to provide for instructor signature if you need to verify class hours for an elective or a non-APR class. We will talk about this in detail when we have the MPR submission process portion of this orientation. Always know where to find this. It can be helpful to even have a few printed out and on hand just in case. But keep in mind that the blank MPR is slightly different for each program, so be sure you're using the correct version for your program. The website is also going to be the place to look for your class schedule and order, your committee meeting calendar and schedule, your standard and policy, and an approved elective list. Please become familiar with where to find the information that is specific to your program. And again, it's always a good idea to bookmark the site so it's easy for you to find. Thank you again for your attention. This concludes part 2, 3 of the most important steps to succeed in your apprenticeship. However, perhaps the most important step of all is turning in correct and on-time monthly progress reports every single month. So stay tuned for part 3, where we demystify the MPR process and turn you into a pro.